All right, it is 2:02, based upon Brent's time. Modified here, so I think we shall open the meeting. And once Denise is ready, we'll do roll call of members.
Foster Sawyer,
Here.
Dan Richer,
Here.
Orland Paulson,
Here.
Laverne Cook,
Here.
Robert Akers,
Here.
Tim Rogers,
Here.
Chuck Jasper,
Present.
Sandra Bashara,
Here.
Steve Hosenoral.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right. Before we get started on approval agenda, just an item to open up with. To me, it's always a privilege to serve on a board in a fashion, whether it's an athletic board or a volunteer board or an elected board or whatever, and to serve on that. And we got some people that served on this board for quite a while, and in other capacities throughout our community. And I just wanted to, this is their last meeting, and I wanted to recognize them for their service and really appreciate all that you've done over the years and with this board, and in the short time I've been with this board. And that would be Orland Paulson, Steve Osmoro, Foster Sawyer, and Chuck Jasper. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if any of the other directors have any comments, or if you guys have any comments you want to say or anything.
I guess I wouldn't mind to say a couple comments. I'd like to thank you for your leadership. Thank all the folks on the board here for your time and your efforts. I really appreciate it. I've spent probably 25 years studying the hydrology of the Black Hills, and our water is incredibly precious and valuable. Financially, it's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, but it's priceless with respect to the quality of our lives. So the work we do here is incredibly important. And going forward, I'd just like to urge the board to keep in mind the sensitivity of our resources here, especially the Madison Aquifer, and the fact that we really can't afford to wait until something happens to clean it up. We need to be proactive. It's so valuable that we have to, if it gets contaminated, we may or may not be able to recover from that. And I think this board has done a great job trying to do that, and I just would like to thank you all for your efforts and leave you with those thoughts going forward.
Thank you, Foster. Very well said. Chuck or Steve or Orland?
I guess I would just, I won't have, all of what he said is good, and I agree with all of that. I do appreciate my time on the board. It's very, very educational, very interesting. I think what the board does is very important to the community. It's a well-kept secret. There aren't a lot of people who really know what this board does. And hopefully some of that educational things that have come up that are efforts in the future will help to alleviate some of that and inform more of the public of what's going on. So, but I do appreciate my time on the board.
Thank you.
I guess I would second what's been said already, and I would go so far as to say the board has talked in the past about the possibility of expanding not necessarily the board, but the area that this board or a board would cover. And it appears that the state is looking at doing that in terms of making either a statewide board or at least, I would say, something that should cover the Hills area, if not statewide. Because the Hills area is an area that I think is certainly very important to cover. And we've discussed going out to the other counties, and I would certainly like to see that area expanded if the state is not covered as it's being proposed to the legislature at present.
I agree completely. So we need better, more coverage to be more effective and stuff. And I think Laverne's going to bring something up later, the directors, that something that's developing on that end. So appreciate it. Thank you. Orland?
Well, I want to thank the board for the years. I don't remember just how many years, but it's been quite a few that I've been on there, and it's been very, very interesting. And I agree with what's been said about the Black Hills and so on, our water resources here, and also what Chuck commented about the expansion on maybe pursuing getting the other Black Hills counties involved in it and stuff, and broadening our base a little bit. I think should be pursued on that. I think that's a worthwhile effort on there. And I was just reading today, they're talking about water problems on the Colorado River and stuff and so on. So it can happen here. I know it has already because of the Spring Creek flowing by me. It hasn't flowed since the spring on there, and that's because the aquifer is low and stuff on there. So our water resource is very important.
Yes, thank you. All right, with that said, we'll move to approval of the agenda. I had just one item. We had talked on old business, it's going to strike, suggest to strike strategic planning and old business. We have really nothing to talk about that on today, so.
Also, point of order on that. We have a couple things here. I thought originally this December meeting has always been just to clear up things that have been done and that have been left outstanding and or to tie up the bills and so forth for the end of the year. I'm seeing we have staff performance evaluation and some other things under new business. I guess I don't think these things are appropriate at this point. That should be moved off to the January meeting.
Yeah, and I haven't been to a whole lot of December meetings to understand what the purpose of that meeting was, but just one note on the staff performance items, that's something that we needed to do, and I think it's going to be very short. It's going to be a matter of collecting the evaluations
Well, I think,
and moving that to January, so.
well, I don't think staff performance evaluations are even appropriate at this time. I believe according to the service agreement, they're to be done in April. You know, our contract doesn't provide it, and the form that I was provided talks about naming an employee. And for the record, Denise is not our employee. She's an employee of RCAC.
When we redid our policies, we created the evaluation to be done in December.
Well, I understand. My point is, Denise is not our employee. I can't evaluate her. She's not our employee.
I think the intent was to give an evaluation, so we had something to go on for the contract as we review the contract.
I understand. I'm concerned about our liability.
For,
Well, for myself, if I have an employee and let's say I terminate them and I give them a bad recommendation, I can expose myself to some liability personally, and I'm not going to do that. She's not our employee, and therefore I think we're even exposing this board to liability if we're doing an evaluation. And she's not our employee. I don't think we can evaluate her. We can make recommendations to her employer, but we can't, I don't think we should be evaluating her.
we needed something to evaluate the performance, and that's what this is intended for.
I understand. I'm not gonna evaluate her,
Okay. All right, it's fine.
and I don't think it should be discussed at this meeting anyway. I think our service agreement says we do an evaluation and make a recommendation to RCAC in April.
Yeah, April, May.
Isn't that what it is? Dan, I think you
I was
looked
gonna
it
say, I
up.
thought we hired RCAC to do the position, and she's just the person that's sent over.
Right?
So if we're gonna evaluate anything, it would be RCAC.
Well, that's true, but she's the
No,
person.
that's, I mean, it comes down to it, that's who we employ.
That is correct, and she is RCAC, and that's who we're evaluating.
Well, then I'd like to see RCAC's evaluation of her first.
Oh, my suggestion, so we can move off this thing, is I have no problem moving it to January so we can discuss the issue, so we can move that one to January. But at some point, we got an issue, we got a policy stating we're evaluating in December, and then we got a contract saying we're evaluating the contract renewal in April, so we need to resolve that.
Yep.
So, and I have no problem moving that to January. So that could be one item if you want to make a motion to remove that, or
I'd so move.
Second.
and your motion is just to remove the evaluation.
Remove it from the agenda.
Okay. Anything
Second.
else?
Do we need to vote on it?
No, I was just checking, and said there was quite a few things on here that didn't think you needed to be here, so I was just checking to see if there's anything else.
Well, the,
Okay.
okay.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So we got a motion on the floor to move policy 7, staff performance evaluations, move them off the agenda and move it to January. And there's a second. And any
Was
further?
it to remove it or to remove it and move it to January?
Move it to January.
Okay.
My motion was just to remove it, period.
Okay.
Is that your second, Dan?
That's my second, yeah.
All right. Any further discussion?
I'd make a comment on that is, I guess I see no real purpose in moving it to January, and actually with the current board, we are the board members who have been on the board this year while Manager Livingston has been here, so I would think our opinions would have some value at this point. We will no longer be here in January. So I would recommend that we do it now, but the motion stands.
Yeah, I agree. And any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, if
Yeah.
they're concerned with that, they should have filled out their paperwork and turned it into you.
Some people have.
And then their opinion is made.
Excuse me?
Then their opinion, they have input on their opinion from their time on the board this year.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I was just gonna say, since they're no longer in January, not going to be on the board, the opinion is really null and void because they're no longer a board member.
I think it is because they were here when she was here and they're evaluating her for this year, so, but just my opinion as well. Any other comments? All right.
Question?
So, all in favor of removing policy 27, staff performance evaluations and removing it, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Roll call.
Okay, the motion is to remove policy 27
Mr. Chairman, you
from.
going to allow public input on the agenda item?
Sure.
Should have asked before we asked for a vote. Director Jasper said about new business. I sat on the board for a couple of years and with Jasper and Director Shara, Olson, Cook, Sawyer. And you guys go back a lot further than 3 or 4 of us did, but wasn't this last meeting just a cleanup meeting? No new business?
If
Isn't
I-
that the way it's been for a long time, Orland? The last meeting in December?
Pretty much, yeah, just wrapping up the past year.
No new business, unless it's emergency kind of thing.
If I,
There's also been the issue that we've talked about having 12 meetings because we have so much stuff to cover. So, but anyway, you got it.
You're breaking with precedent. Am I correct, Orland? Laverne, Foster? This board is breaking with precedent?
I believe it varies. If something needs to be dealt with, we deal with
But
it.
my question was, are you breaking with precedent? Have you,
Not entirely.
yeah, you've been on the board a long time. Can you name, Laverne, Orland, can you name 1 year where you did new business in December?
the last 2 years.
I think we did.
Yeah, I think we have.
And you'd go back in the minutes and you could prove that. But that meeting was announced as cleanup meeting, basically.
George, you got a point?
Thank you.
All right. Thank
I would
you.
just like to remind everybody here that this is, the board members are getting paid the full $100 for their per diem. And I would think that to, serve your constituents well, if there are issues, and there are issues that have to be addressed now,
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
specifically.
Excuse me, somebody else is talking. You'll have your chance.
Point of order.
No, point of order. Let her finish. Please sit down.
Point of order. Your administrator should be neutral.
She's just stating some points. Go ahead, finish.
The RC&D annual conference that came up, that's going to occur before the next meeting in January. And I was asked by a future board member if that's something that would be reimbursed if a board member wanted to attend that. So unless you want to call a special meeting, which will cost the taxpayers more money to address these issues, I think that this is a very good time, since you are all collecting per diem for being here, that if you can address more information or more issues, why would you not take the opportunity? And it might be a precedence that has been exercised quite regularly, but that doesn't mean that it's a policy or that it is a hard, fast rule.
Thank you. Any more comments
Yes.
from the public?
Dan Driscoll, U.S. Geological Survey. I'm not familiar with your bylaws, but I am familiar with an agenda item we've got with East Dakota Water Development District tomorrow. They do regular business during their December meeting, if that sheds any light on your discussions.
Mr. Mann?
Two issues very briefly. Larry Mann. One, my understanding, especially as it applies to a board like this, precedent can only be established by a court. And number two, a member of the audience does not have the right to call for a point of order.
Comments? Dan?
Yes, this is the second meeting in a row that our manager has jumped in to opine on something.
I asked her to speak.
You did. I just heard it going on.
She had put up her hand and I said, go ahead and speak, so I gave her the floor.
Well, I don't think that's right. I think if she wants to opine her opinion, she should need to just sit there
Thank you.
as a citizen.
All right, thanks. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, the December meeting is a regularly scheduled meeting. It's a meeting,
It is.
publicly advertised as a meeting. And I think it's a regular meeting.
It is. Roll call?
So the roll call is specifically to remove policy 27 from the agenda. This is staff performance evaluations. So a yes vote will remove the policy. A no vote will retain the policy evaluation. Akers.
No.
Bashara.
No, I mean, yes. Removed.
Cosanoro.
No.
Jasper.
Yes.
Cook.
No.
Paulson.
No.
Richer.
Yes.
Rogers.
No.
Sawyer.
No.
Get approved, so those people who, the intent of this meeting with this performance was to gather the performances together and then come up with, work with the committee to develop that, but we'll address that when we get to that. It stays on the agenda. Any other agenda, items for the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to move the public comment from some visitors that we have here today up, I think, after the minutes perhaps, so that they don't have to sit through 2 or 3 hours of discussion to wait.
Sarah, second on, I believe it's Gardner Gray. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further comment from the public? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, I only
Who
heard one
opposed?
aye.
Richard? Richard opposed? Okay.
Okay. All right, it will be moved after the minutes are approved or discussed. Any other changes? Do we have to take a vote on to strike strategic planning?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, we'll move to the minutes of the previous meeting.
Okay, so just for cleaning it up, please approve the agenda with the changes. Because you moved to move public comment, so, but, so just make a motion, just to make sure it's clean and approved.
For which one?
Approve the agenda, approve the
Oh,
agenda
gotcha.
as amended.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, second. Laverne, to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we got 2 opposed. And passed. Approval of the agenda was approved.
Thank
Okay,
you.
minutes of the previous meeting? If Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I got a request from Mike Mueller on Tuesday. He left town today. I'd like to know why his comments are not in the minutes.
He had sent an email and I responded back with CCing Chairman Rogers, and we addressed that issue already.
And he responded back.
And he responded back.
And
Hmm?
why did he call me? When was this
This might have
done?
been,
Because he called me yesterday.
Yeah, we got his response saying, okay, with the explanation, so.
Okay.
Any other comments on the minutes? Motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of comments on the minutes, if that's all
We'll get to
right.
the public here in a second. Thank you. We just need a motion to approve in a second and then open it up for comment.
But I disapprove of the minutes.
You'll get your chance to speak in just a second. You got a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
Second, okay. Open for discussion. First, we'll go with the directors, and then we'll get to you, man.
I left at some point during the minutes, I believe it was during the Rapid Creek 319 discussion. I don't see that as being mentioned in the minutes.
Yeah, it's up in the top part, called to order. It said left meeting at 2:35.
Where's that?
At the beginning,
call to order, if you look on.
Oh, okay,
the district.
okay, that's where it was put,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Mhm.
I was looking for it in the body, so.
okay. Yeah. Now you have your opportunity.
Regarding old business of the Rapid Creek Clean Water Initiative,
Can I have you come up to the front and say your name, please? Thank you.
Tina Mullally speaking on behalf of last month's minutes for the previous meeting. You approved the meeting minutes. I would like a correction to those minutes.
We haven't approved them yet. We just opened it up for discussion.
You opened it up
Yeah,
for discussion.
we're-
I would like my name spelled correctly. That is Mulally. And I also had a comment on the minutes being printed in the Rapid City Journal. My understanding of policy back in, I believe it was 2012, that the board's minutes were to reflect no bias, and that the board's minutes were only supposed to reflect motions, resolutions, and bills. Any of the other comments were to be put on the website and to be available to the public for reflection, but only the minutes of motions, resolutions, and bills were supposed to be stated in the Rapid City
That
Journal.
policy was changed last May of 2014.
It was?
Yeah, there's a policy written on the minutes.
Okay, well then I did not get that copy of those
It was gone
policies
away
on
before,
2014.
Yeah, so that's been changed.
You can
Okay,
find
so
our
I will have to check that.
Okay.
2014 of May, you said?
Yes, and it should be in the policy package.
Chairman
Um,
Rogers, the policies are posted on the website.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
May of 2014.
Do you know which
And-
policy that is specifically?
I was just
I'm
going through
looking
and
right
looking at it. It is policy number 5.
Okay,
Thank you, greatly
and
appreciate
we'll
it.
get your name corrected on there.
That'd be greatly appreciated. I was also going to say if public comment is being allowed in the minutes and being published, then all comments should be published as well, because I believe there was a couple other speakers that day as well. And I feel that I was, how do I want to say it? I was pointed out, and if I'm going to be pointed out, I'd like to be quoted specifically, and not just said that I said this. And I think all comments of the public should be put in the minutes, or if you're going to put one person's, you should put everybody's.
Yes, just to comment on that, I think that, you know, we have it taped to try to capture that piece of it, and this is trying to capture a good portion of it, but no, your comments are very well taken, we'll consider those.
Make good comments, so.
I think the only major comment is the spelling,
Okay.
so.
Let me add to what that young lady just said. If you're going to put public comments in, they ought to be quotes. The previous administrator used the minutes in a very biased nature. And that's why when I was on the board, I pushed primarily against me. And that's why I pushed very hard. And even though there were only 4 of us, the other 5, one of the other 5, or at least a couple of the other 5 agreed with me. The minutes, to avoid bias. And the only way you can avoid bias is minutes, resolutions, and bills. Anything other than that you want to put in the paper ought to be quotes.
Appreciate your comments.
No, that's why, and Sandy will remember, and Chuck will remember, and there was another individual at the reorganization, he's no longer on the board. But we pushed very hard, because the previous contractor wrote what he or she wanted in the minutes. I need to remind you folks, you all took an oath. This is not some private club, as it was for a lot of years. It was basically a private club. Every single dollar you spend is a taxpayer dollar. And the fellow back here said the point of order. That's a debate we're going to have one of these days about who can raise a point of order.
Let's stick to that, George, let's stick to
Okay.
the item, to the minutes.
Okay.
And if you, are you,
But that's in the minutes. And my other point on the minutes. Comment was made last meeting that previously this board has funded hydrology conference speakers. If that's the case, when I was on the board, I must have missed that.
again, that's another topic.
That's in the minutes.
George, that's another topic.
That's in the minutes. Okay,
Another topic.
thank you.
And just to comment on your thing, that I appreciate when you were a board member that that's the direction you had on your minutes, but this board changed the policy on those minutes and how they're going to be written. So if you can convince the rest of the board to change those, that's, you know, your prerogative, but that's how they're written now.
Hang loose.
You betcha. All right. Any other comments on the minutes? All right, we have a motion and a second, and I think we had one suggested change, and that was to change to the spelling on Tina Melodies. So, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Abstain.
Staying because you were gone part of the meeting?
Right.
Oh, I'm saying, because I wasn't here at the meeting either.
Okay, all right. We got a
No.
majority.
Okay. Anybody vote against approval?
No, I didn't hear any.
Okay. just-
Sandra and I abstain.
2 abstains. All right. Mr. Gray?
Thank you for allowing me a few minutes, and I'll try not to take too much of your time. I spoke with Ms. Livingston yesterday, and she gave me some advice how to kind of proceed with this. My concern is the safety of the water in the hills, and realizing that you are a water board, it seemed to me that it would be a logical place for me to come to express that concern. I had the honor of running for District 30 representative this last fall, and I mainly ran on water safety and water security in the hills, as it happens to be attached to the proposed uranium mining in the Dewey Burdock area. My concern is the safety of the water due to transmissivity, transfer of polluted water from one aquifer to another, and the fact that this process releases contaminants, radioactive elements into the water supply, and my concern that it can't be cleaned. Now, Ms. Leamington informed me that you folks have heard a pro and con on this kind of a thing, and that your opinion is mostly that being in Pennington County, it doesn't necessarily apply to a mining operation in the Southern Hills down in Custer and Fall River. I mentioned to her that if PowerTech is approved and it goes forward, then there are upwards of 8 or 9 other ISL mining corporations who want to come into the hills and do ISL uranium mining. And since the band of uranium that circles the hills is connected, then what you have is a ring of ISL mining operations encircling the hills. So it's very much an issue for Pennington County, as it is for downstream Cheyenne River, et cetera, et cetera. I would like to invite the board to consider a position of supporting clean water, safe water, and that threatening that water supply and the safety of that supply in any way simply isn't worth whatever financial gain might be made from it. I would also ask that if I might return in January, and instead of speaking just for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, maybe have an opportunity to speak with you at further length with some more information, et cetera, in order for you possibly to see yourself clear in taking one side or the other of the issue, because it does apply to Pennington County. Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to any kind of response I might get from the board, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Before I open it up for questions or anything, I don't think there's any problem with you getting on our January agenda. Just talk with Denise and
Great.
work through that.
Great.
And,
That would be wonderful. I appreciate it.
And as far as developing a position, I can't speak for the rest of the board, but I haven't developed one myself because I still need more education on the process.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I said I haven't developed a position myself on the issue. I need more information.
Yeah.
On both sides of the thing. So
I
was
did
gone
happen to
during
mention-
I was gone during one of the presentations, and I just haven't been updated on the whole process to have a complete understanding.
Yeah. I did mention to Ms. Livingston that the state medical board issued a statement in opposition to the mining, not so much the mining, but the danger to the clean water supply, as well as this Rapid City City Council also passed a resolution of grave concern about this issue. So outfits that are involved with Pennington County also realize that it concerns Pennington County, and hopefully that would allow you to get involved and possibly support clean water. Yes, ma'am.
You're inferring that we don't support clean water? I don't.
No,
like that
I'm not,
assumption.
and I'm not inferring that. My understanding is that you haven't made a statement one way or the other about uranium mining and the use of the water in the hills.
Okay, so.
And so I would invite that.
Well, you were inferring that we didn't, several times inferred that we didn't take a stand on, basically take a stand on clean water.
If you have, I'm unaware, and that's my ignorance, and I apologize for
We're
that.
here to ensure clean water.
Hmm?
One of our purposes of being here is to ensure clean water.
Absolutely, which is why I thought that coming to see you would be a proper,
Well, I just wanted to let you know that we do ensure, here to ensure clean water.
Very good.
Whether we take your issue up or not, that is what we're here for.
right.
So to infer that we don't is.
Well, if I did, I apologize, I didn't mean to suggest that.
Yeah.
Yes, I recall this discussion taking place that poor gal had to wait all the way to the end of the meeting before she handed out the paperwork and that. And as I recall, we just kind of came to a consensus that we don't have enough knowledge at this time, number one way or the other. I'm personally leaning against it, but I want more information. But we did, it is not in our jurisdiction. So the best we can do is a letter of support one way or the other. And as this time that I know of, after that discussion, nobody was hard one way or the other. It was still trying to get more information on just exactly what the plans were. And I think somebody asked if one of the mining it wasn't a company, one of the advocates could come back and explain that the deep
Holland Beck.
Deep well injection?
Yes, the deep well injection,
Yeah.
because it was pretty vague on when the opposition was up. So,
I missed that meeting when
Yes, you did.
Power Tech gave that presentation, so I
yes,
have a lot of questions.
and I think it was brought up that we should have them back.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. I guess you indicated that, and maybe you understood perhaps that we're not really interested. Well, at present, what happens down in the southern hills is not within our jurisdiction. However, if something were to happen, as you said, if that was approved down there and someone was to come into the Pennington County area, then this board certainly would have some jurisdiction. So I would say, were I on the board, I certainly would be still interested in what is happening down there, because as you pointed out, indirectly, it could have an effect on us.
Absolutely.
So yes, I will no longer be on the board in January, but I would certainly encourage people on the board to maintain an interest in what is going on, because it could very well affect our water here.
Right.
So, yeah, I think the board certainly has interest and will continue to have interest in what is happening down there because of the potential impact in the future.
Mhm.
And again, with the systems that, if I remember right, them talking about the recycling of the water, so they're only going to be using so much and they're going to be recycling it constantly, was never really discussed on exactly how they do their recycling system with the water that they use. So there's a lot about this that still still have questions on.
I'd be glad to talk about that at a more convenient time for the board.
I don't know if it's necessary to do it in the January meeting because it is out of our jurisdiction though. And since we only meet such a few times of the year, to hold a special meeting that we have no effect on, or to take up time in our meeting that we have no effect on, whether it's other than just a real brief presentation to make us aware of it, there's really not a whole lot we can do.
I would make the comment that in the Southern Hills there are 4 aquifers,
I know that.
and the Indian Car is a huge aquifer, goes over in Wyoming. I believe it also comes up here. I may be wrong on that, but I think it does. The Deadwood and the Minaloosa are fairly local down there. And the Madison, which is the clean one, may indeed be connected to water in the north. And the main concern is if the mining goes ahead and if there is contamination, and every scientific notion seems to indicate that that's the case. The USGS knows that there's never been an ISL mining operation cleaned up. It can't be done. That once you have that contaminated, and if that affects all of the southern hills, well, there's any number of different areas in the state's operation that a loss of that water for public use and agricultural use will have on the state operation. It could affect tourism, it could affect health, it could have, and the list goes on. You have to have clean water. And because Pennington is simply north of that particular operation, doesn't necessarily mean that it won't have any effect on Pennington County. I would argue that.
I agree with you on that, and one thing that I would like to see is I would like to see two good opposing arguments and technical arguments. And
That's
if you-
fine.
And if you got that presentation good, and I would ask ProTech, I think they're one of the representatives
Absolutely,
here.
that's fine.
One thing that in my investigation of it, I believe there's 3 operating mines, 1 in Nebraska and
Crow Butte.
2 in Wyoming.
Right.
And actually, I had talked to one of those individuals about coming, giving a presentation on their action, showing their actual numbers.
Mhm.
You know, the groundwater monitoring and showing what they're doing.
Right.
And the chemicals they're using and the entire process along ProTech. So, no, the more information we get, the better off we are to understand it and
Sure.
and have a good conversation all the way throughout.
Sure. I would invite that, absolutely.
I was gonna make the same comment there. If we're gonna have the Power Tech representative, you know, they're pretty positive about the operation. I think we should also have someone from the U.S. Geological Survey or possibly School of Mines or the State Geological Survey, or someone who's a little more objective to talk about the technical
You bet.
setting, just so we have some balance.
Yeah. If we're asked if we can take a position, it's very prudent for us to have a complete understanding of it.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a suggestion? Instead of doing this in January.
That's gonna be a meeting in itself.
Yeah, instead of
Yeah,
doing this in
that would
January.
be something we
Yeah, I don't think anybody'd have time even for them to prepare, so I'd say work with Denise to find a good time to do it. So,
That'd be something.
does that sound good?
You bet.
Coordinate something with the USGS and DENR.
Yeah, at least it would be nice to have all the sides here to discuss it at once.
Definitely, definitely. Larry, does that sound something?
May I make a just a comment, Mr. Chairman, when
Yes,
they're
sir.
finished?
Yes. Yeah. Any more, sir?
Nope, that's it.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Sure, Larry.
Well, Mr. Chairman, in the interest of full disclosure, I've represented Partech since 2005, and you're certainly, as a board, understanding that you're not a regulatory board, you know, I think it's important if you feel you need to make some kind of statement, that's obviously within your authority. The only thing that I'd ask you to consider is that given the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the EPA, the two state boards, the Board of Minerals and Environment and the Water Management Board, have taken thousands of hours of testimony on this. They have yet to make final decisions on those permit applications. I don't know if you feel comfortable taking a position on a project that, number one, hasn't been decided by the regulatory authorities, but really literally involves expert testimony taken over a course of thousands of hours. The permit application alone is 3 ring binders that would take up this table. That's just the application. So before you get yourself in a position you may come to regret, I hope you'll consider those things. And whenever you decide to either take the issue up or not, just keep those things in mind. I know from PowerTech's perspective, we are now Ozarga Uranium. But given that, I know that they would be more than happy to come up and provide you with any information that they're available to give you.
I think we'd entertain another presentation so we could talk to both sides at the same time.
great.
And you know, we were asked to take a position. We don't have to take a position one way or the other. To me, it's an educational thing. For
Absolutely.
Me. So.
And I know we'd be more than happy to come up and do whatever you like.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to give all of the detail in a short period of time. But Hollenbeck's gotten pretty good at it. He can give the presentation pretty effectively.
Thank you.
I think you're right, though, until the permits are approved, we don't really, not, they might be turned down anyway, don't have to worry about it. So, wait till the permits are approved, then worry about it, I guess. That's my opinion.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, I think, I understand how hard it is to sit on boards and see a lot of these issues come up that may have some tangential sort of effect. But again, and I go back to what a number of you have commented on, this really is not within your, your jurisdiction. This project is located considerably out of this jurisdiction. And it's interesting to note, I think, that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has denied standing to a number of people in Rapid City who are claiming a potential impact on drinking water resources. They've denied them standing because the project will have no effect on Rapid City's water supply.
Appreciate those comments. George?
Hi, I'm Gina Parkhurst, and I'm a Pennington County resident, and I'm just here representing myself as a concerned citizen about clean water. And I was involved in the NRC public comment part of the hearing a few months ago in August. I don't recall anyone being denied public or standing.
Did you choose to intervene in the hearing?
Yeah.
No, you didn't. You chose.
Oh, no, you're right. I'm sorry. I didn't intervene. I just did the public comment. That's right. That's right.
Interveners have been denied standing.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that.
Is that possible?
But I'm hearing that some of the board members are interested in learning more. There is an event in Custer. Now, I know that's kind of far, but in Custer on Thursday, January 15th, and it's at 7 o'clock. There will be several presenters. One of them will be Dr. Lilias Jarding, and she is a longtime researcher who's worked on uranium and natural resource issues for years. And then the other presenter will be Bruce Ellison, an attorney, and he's part of a panel of folks, of these folks who have vital information to share. And there's one or two other guest speakers who are still being confirmed. This is free. From 7 to 8 will be the information lectures, and then from 8 to 8:30 there will be question and answer time. So if any of you are willing to make the trek up to Custer on Thursday, January 15th, you could learn quite a bit about the issue.
Did you say we're where in Custer?
Oh, I'm sorry. The Pine Room Annex in Custer.
Library Annex.
Is that what it's called? The Library Annex.
Oh,
If you know
library.
where the public library
Yeah.
is in Custer. I don't have the address, sorry.
Do me a favor, just pass all that information on to Denise, and she can email
Yes.
it out to us.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
I don't have more details, but yeah,
Yeah.
I can email that to you.
That's great.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
I've heard a couple of sides, and I guess I got another side, and Director Jasper and I have probably read those statutes as thoroughly as we can and or could or whatever, and I don't know, and Chuck might disagree, but I don't think that this board has the authority to take a position on something like this. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Any further comment on that discussion?
Was this a discussion or was this public?
Just public input, just
Okay.
discussion on the public input. So. All right. We shall move on to administrative management items, and I'm going to pass it over to Denise.
Were you done with public comment, or is there going to be public comment at the end? You move it up just for him or all of them?
Just for him, we'll do public comment at the end.
Okay, thank you.
First item is the payment of the bills and the transfer of funds. So I handed out, don't look at the one that is in your pamphlet, but look at the free one. The free sheet, that's this is the one for $8,037.86. So those are the bills that I got in. The last one, New Underwood Post coming in at the final hour last night. And so So that is up for approval, and then I have one item I would like you to consider. This came up last month when I was doing a review. There's an outstanding check for Director Akers from May, and when I asked him about it, he could not find it and everything, but I went back, I double checked, made sure it's not, it did not, it is not, has not gone through. And just to clean up the records, I would like to reissue that check. That is not included on the bill pay. That would be in addition to the 8,000 number.
So that would be a separate vote? This is not on
You can do it as a separate vote, yeah. However you want.
it? Does
Do
it say 90 days expires on the bottom of our check?
I don't think that one.
Because if it does.
I'm not gonna
get out
worry
of here.
about it, guys.
It's a stale check after 180 days.
He said the dog ate it.
Along with his homework.
You care?
So,
No, I just forget it. We'll donate it back to the district. Not gonna.
just disregard?
Yeah,
Just wanna do it right.
Disregard, okay.
Well, if you come across it, though.
Yeah, if I do, I'll let you know.
Do you need a
Okay.
motion on this bill pay?
I do need a motion on the bill pay.
Have a motion on the.
I would make a motion to approve the bills and transfer the funds.
Second.
A second from Sandra. Any further discussion?
Yeah, you are, Sandra.
Sandra said
She did
first.
speak.
Oh, she beat
She
me.
beat
you.
Oh,
Say-
okay.
Just a little bit before you
You
did.
got some guys that are deaf out
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
there. Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
can I ask Denise a question?
definitely.
Do we have, on these supplies for Dakota Water Watch, do we know exactly where all those supplies are at?
We have a list of everybody that was given supplies, and then, like the bacteria lab in Hill City, all of that gets billed to us. And also, I have supplies in my office for backup, or if we have anybody join the program, then I have the supplies.
Do we have a way of knowing if they're actually using these things?
It is, Dakota Water Watch is putting together their annual report. I don't know when they will come out
No,
with
the
that,
people
but
that
that
we
will.
have, the people we have issued equipment to, do we know if they're actually doing it?
It is, you know, I do not have that specific information. Jeremy is the one that oversees the whole program
If I got
at
ahold
East
of
Dakota
Jeremy,
Water.
he would know?
Mhm.
Okay.
So I know every once in a while we check in, and he's always waiting for reports. He gets a lot of them from Rochelle in Hill City. She collects all of them that come in, and then also Spearfish collects a lot of them.
I'll get ahold of Jeremy. I think it's time we start rounding up the stuff that's not being used. Get it back.
Any other questions?
And then just also FYI on the Dakota Water Watch, we get grant assistance for that as well. So I think the bill was like $2,500, but we got, they get a grant from the Discovery Center, and we get credited a portion of that.
Did we ask for it?
Do you have a question, Jim?
I just asked if we asked for a grant.
I don't remember asking for a grant.
They spread it out. It's the Water Watch program. They spread it out over the whole program.
From East Dakota?
It's through,
So it's East
it's
Dakota
through the
grant.
Dakota, it's for the Dakota Water Watch program specifically.
Mr. Chairman, can we put that on the January meeting to discuss? This grant thing, Discovery, whatever it is, that's the
It's
first
the
time
grant
we
that
got it.
East Dakota got, and they spread the money out through the whole Dakota. It's
Yeah,
not us,
yeah,
it's East Dakota.
Understand, but I'd like to get a thorough knowledge of it.
Sure.
This is the first I've ever heard of Discovery.
We had it last year too.
I'm sure we did, but like I said, it's the first time
No, we can put it
Okay.
on January, it's fine.
because if I'm ignorant to it, I know the new guys are gonna be ignorant to it.
Okay.
And specifically, you would like to talk about the Dakota Watch entire program or just
Yeah,
the
we're
grant?
gonna do that too.
Yeah, just put that on.
So as Dakota Watch program and grant.
Okay. Any other questions on bill pay? From the public?
I don't see the news on here.
Hearing none, all in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, one down.
End of year report, please put preliminary end of year report. Until we get the final numbers from the county, which won't be till the middle of January. But you do have in front of you the, kind of, so you'll have the current financial standing, this is as of yesterday. We still have outstanding checks and at least one outstanding bill. And then we'll also have bills from the newspapers or, you know, that will affect these numbers for the end of the year. And then the remaining tax for December still needs to come out of that. So then if you look at the second page, this is the bi-monthly budget report. So I think we have a really good budget structure now, so you'll see, now you'll be able to better assess where you need to put funds for the following budget year, where before you didn't really have that, the clear-cut line items, and see where you might need to put more money, more resources towards, and where we may not need more resources. There was, in public outreach, I had to move $500 out of that 1216, and because that went for the gas and oil conference sponsorship. We had 500 that went to the sponsorship, and then 200 went to public outreach. So that's minus 500. So that will be reflected in the change. And then I guess I will just entertain any questions anybody might have over where we are. Like I said, the current financial standing that reflects the current amount of our obligations that we have currently through FY14. Some of those obligations are from previous years, like the Canyon Lake Restoration Project. So that's not all FY14 funds. That's a combination of previous fiscal years.
I don't think we have any approval, but approval process just as information. But if there's any questions
Right.
on the current financial standing, we shall entertain those now.
Okay.
Hearing none, let's move to the next.
So the next one is a travel request that I'd like to submit. This is for each year. For the past 2 years, I've been traveling to here primarily for a legislative breakfast that's hosted by the Water Development Districts. And then also it's an opportunity to meet with the other managers, attend a couple of meetings. And then also it's the same time as the South Dakota Rural Water Conference. So this has always been a good networking and consensus building event. My organization, RCAC, has paid for it the previous 2 years, but we don't have the funding. And so I would like to request that this year, and it is primarily, I've gone for West Dakota, like I said, for a legislative breakfast. It's a great opportunity to meet our legislators and bring awareness to the legislators about the Water Development District. I created a form for the travel request. Hotel rooms are around $90. It's, I put some transportation costs in there, and the conference itself is $200.
To open it up for discussions, can we have a motion?
I'll make that motion for approval.
We have a motion for approval, second.
You second.
Oh, Vern seconded. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think rural water is in our purview, number one. And rural water is in RCAC's purview, per their statement back in 2012, I think it was. And a glad hand conference, I don't see where the taxpayer of Payne County gets anything out of that.
Thank you.
Oh, I agree with what, I think it's more of a RCDC function to go to that, and I don't see the benefits to the West Dakota Water Board or the taxpayers of Payne.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Question. If RCAC paid for it before, why aren't they paying it now?
Denise?
Denise?
Just federal funding cuts and program cuts.
Well, I could see where it may be a benefit to us to some extent, but I guess, you know, in light of some of the other comments, you know, rural water, like has been said, is not within our purview, or at least not very much, I don't think. You know, I don't see we should foot the bill entirely, but I could see maybe partially.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I guess I don't understand why rural water wouldn't be in our purview, since we go from the Wyoming state line out to the Cheyenne River, which is quite rural.
Because we're, Mr. Chairman, can I respond to that?
Sure.
Yeah, rural water is defined as, it's not defined as surface water, it's defined as rural water systems, wastewater removal. There's 3 of them in there, and surface water isn't on it. So, again, it's not in our purview. And I agree that it may be advantageous to us, but it may not be. But you know, we got a lecture last meeting about $180,000 in our reserve funds. But if we keep spending 500 here and 4,000 here and this and that, and the next thing we know, when it comes time to help out Rapid City, we're not going to have $180,000.
My opinion on this is it's, as Denise indicated, good networking. There's going to be the other districts there talking, and if you look through the agenda, there's a lot of water issue related topics. There's also a DENR legislative update, and I mean, you get to talk with the people that are working across the state and get good ideas from them. And so I'm going to have a yes vote, but is any further comment?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that West Dakota Water isn't Rapid City water necessarily.
I guess I misstated when I said Rapid City. I meant Rapid Creek.
Okay.
I guess, you know, if Denise is going to go to this, I would expect we're going to get some kind of report back from her exactly what all was accomplished.
We can make that part of the motion.
Well, I agree with Jasper, we shouldn't pay for the whole thing.
Any further comment?
I do think that this would be a good opportunity to information gathering, to networking, and find out what's going on throughout the state on water issues. I think that's important to the board to stay current on those kind of issues.
Definitely. I like the idea of a report too.
Yeah, I think that maybe if they've been cutting funding, maybe we should push them to maybe next year come back up with that money. You know, chip in now to get it done, but I know they've been cutting back on a lot of funding in places, so. But I think it's important that she does go, because it is a statewide meeting.
Further comment from the public?
I got one more question. If she goes, will she be representing, or will she also be representing RC, or DDC?
RCAC.
RCAC.
I would assume she's representing us.
And not,
I
we're
have
not
the last-
serving two masters at this
The last
meeting.
2 years, I've been traveling as West Dakota.
And being paid for by RCAC.
But you shouldn't be serving two masters at one time.
George?
Anybody know what the contract says about this kind of thing?
Yeah, so she's gotta come and ask for it.
Does the contract allow for this?
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody mentioned networking. It looked like a director, especially a director that's got 4 years to go, would be more apt to network with some follow-on than a contractor. The contract is an annual deal, as I recall. What happens in a year from now if RCAC is no longer the contractor for this group? What happened to your networking?
I believe if she provides a report, that'll take care of that.
Pardon me?
If she provides a report, that'll take care of that. We'll have that information.
But I thought networking was something you put in your head and that you passed on, disseminated to others. That was, maybe I'm all wrong about networking. Anyway, that aside, you feel comfortable giving taxpayer dollars for this? And just before you vote, once again, these are taxpayer dollars. And I'll close with this. How many of you are aware that the state legislature is going to have a plan before them, according to the paper, a plan before them to create 9 regional water, whatever. Everybody aware of that?
We're going to discuss that later.
Okay.
One of the directors is going to bring that up.
So if that comes to pass this session, then this board probably goes away. Thank you.
Thanks, George.
Dan Driscoll, taxpayer. I support the use of my tax dollars for that purpose. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Larry Mann, I support that too, and with regard to networking, if you send a board member, what happens if they drop dead?
That's true.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion on the floor to send Denise to the conference. We have a second. Do we want to get that amended to that a report comes along with this? That friendly amendment. And I think we got to have the person that made the motion make that friendly amendment.
It was Foster.
That was me.
Okay.
So made.
Okay, that your friendly amendments to have a report. Okay. Any further discussion?
Needs to be seconded?
Yeah, we probably need a second on that.
Yeah, I support it.
Second, okay. Any further discussion? All right, good discussion. Hearing none, no more further. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you.
Any opposition? Okay.
No opposition.
Okay.
Did we vote on the amendment?
We voted on the amendment with the friendly amendment.
Voted on the travel request with including
We
the.
included the friendly amendment. So.
And so the last item that I have to talk about, and we've had this discussion several times, was in regards to the minutes and the posting policy. And had discussion with some of the other managers and what they have done. Specifically, what East Dakota does is when they send the minutes up to the paper, they put this material is being provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as a request for formal publication. So that puts the burden on the paper. If they want to publish, then it's their cost. They can't charge the district at that time. And I had mentioned that we had, there's 2 codified law that draft minutes are to be made available to the public within 10 business days. However, this section does not apply if an audio or video recording of the meeting is available to the public on the governing body's website within 5 business days after the meeting. So, so then that would also alleviate the concern of the minutes being biased, as mentioned earlier. And then also the policy of the whole mailing issue. The other directors view that as, you know, that is antiquated, and so emailing is the appropriate form of mailing to the papers. And so to avoid, you know, the publishing costs, the other districts have said that they have saved a lot of money by not publishing, not paying for the cost to go in the paper. What else?
Excuse me.
And then also one district, they do the draft minutes, they make a copy, and they have it sitting at their front desk at their office, so they're available to the public.
I was, I think I missed part of the audio video.
So you have to make the draft minutes available to the public within 10 business days. Unless, but that, excuse me, be available for inspection by any person within 10 business days after the meeting. However, this section does not apply if an audio or video recording of the meeting is available to the public on the governing body's website within 5 business days after the meeting. So as long as they're available with audio, then.
Audio and video? Or just
Audio or video.
Audio or video, okay. Okay.
Back when we set up publishing the minutes in the paper, the minutes were not available to the public that readily. This is one of the reasons why we did this. It may now be time that all we have to do is print notice to go see it on the website. We do not need to, in the paper, print all the minutes, except for where to locate the minutes. That is notifying the public that the minutes are available, and it would take a lot less print time. It can be done in public notices, in classifieds, which would be a lot cheaper. And the public then will have the website address to view all the information that the water board is doing. So I will request, or was planning on requesting, this change of way of doing that for cheaper, to be cheaper, and to make the website more available to the public.
So you would suggest just paying to post the note saying they are available on our website?
Right, where they
Okay.
can find it.
Mr. Chairman, can I add a friendly suggestion?
Mhm.
We have to, by law, print when our meeting is and where it's gonna be. Why can't we just add a line that says the minutes will be available online 5 working days, or audio will be available online 5 working days after the meeting,
That's fine.
and then www, whatever we are. And that's it. And we don't have to say, you know, if you want to see our meetings, if you want to see our meeting minutes, that's another print. So if we just do it all at once and then send them to the papers and say information only, it's your call.
There's a
And when we-
website now where I go, when there's a publication or public notice, I just go to the website and look it up. It's a whole statewide thing. I mean, you don't even have to, it covers the whole state.
Well, that's great for people who have access to a
Well, I know,
computer.
but-
Not everyone does
Well,
yet.
no, but, well, everybody does now with public libraries.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
if you live out in the country,
Well,
going to the
I'm
public
just saying
library is
it's,
still a pain in the neck.
I've looked up stuff on just the public website.
Right, but, so when we post, or when we send it to the paper, quote, for informational purposes only, that is going to contain just motions, resolutions, and bills? Or are we gonna continue to add some
There won't
additional?
be any minutes.
We're not gonna do that anymore?
I will still draft up minutes, but we're not going to put them in the paper. They'll be available for the public to look at. We can put them online, and then we'll have to have some approval process for them. They both draft up minutes. It's just that they don't post them in the paper and pay $100 and whatever dollars to post them in the paper.
So my understanding where we're heading, based upon the discussion on, is that when we post the notice of the meeting, we'll state that the meeting of the minutes will be online at this email address, and that'll eliminate the need to send the minutes to the paper afterwards, saving that money. And the minutes, we'll have the minutes like we're still making them, unless that gets changed, and then also the audio will be on the internet site, West Dakota internet site.
Okay, well, because I was perhaps misunderstanding, I thought you were saying East River people were still printing some minutes, sending them to the paper and just saying it's for informational purposes only. We're not paying for printing, but they were still hoping they would print them, but not charging.
They do not do the audio, video on their website, so they have to, and we can still mail them to the paper, but with the tagline, this material is being provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as a request for formal publication. They
Right.
also do that for meeting notices as well. And they say on slow news days, they will put that in there for filler, not the minutes necessarily, but the notice of meeting.
Right, so there would be no harm in sending the minutes to them with that request.
Correct.
Right. I
Okay,
would
then
still,
maybe they will post them, so it's no harm, no foul, no harm, right?
right.
We just don't have to pay.
We don't have to pay.
But we'll pay for the blurb that they are available on our
Right,
website.
I understand that.
Okay.
Okay, so we may be getting publication, maybe not, but at least that possibility exists.
I think to even eliminate having to pay that is Dan's suggestion, correct me if I'm wrong, is to put it on the notice, so we
Right,
only pay for it
no,
once.
no, I understand, yeah.
But if we send it to them and they print it at no charge, great,
Right, that's gratis.
yes.
Yeah, extra, great.
Does that meet
Put
the
it on
requirement?
what notice?
Does it meet the requirement to put it on the announcement notice? State requirement?
We could make it,
There's no requirement
There isn't?
for notice
There.
either.
yeah, to the minutes, yeah.
When I post the agenda on our website, there's no requirement
Okay.
that we post notice of the meeting.
Okay.
So are you saying you want to because when we can send the notice of meeting to the paper too with that same tagline, there's no requirement that we have to send notice of the meeting. We put notice, all we have to do is we have the agenda posted 24 hours in advance of our meeting, 24 visible hours in advance of our meeting. And it also goes on our website.
With the tagline, and then we're done. Right?
Right now, we don't post a notice of meeting. It just goes
On
on
the website.
the office, the agenda is posted.
You don't send anything to the paper about the meeting, posting the meeting?
No, we've done it before when we are having a special meeting or if our location changes, then we,
I think there's a few codified laws that require some things that go in the paper. Like notice of elections and just openings and
Right.
special meetings and special.
right, and notice of vacancies notice of elections, those have to follow very specific publication requirements, but not notice meetings or,
So I think if-
or minute. Well,
So I think we just put a little blurb on the bottom of that, 5 days after the meeting, audio will be ready.
So are you looking for direction on how to?
Well, I know this was, has been in question for quite a while about, posting all of the minutes, because the minutes are lengthy, and that's another reason that they were abbreviated. So this is just saying that, because there was so much question with codified law as to, it says we have to mail them to the paper, but it doesn't say anything about having to publish them. It's just they have to be sent to the paper. So, so this is an avenue to save, publication costs. We are over 2,200 in publication costs, but like we had said, some of those are required for posting notice of elections or vacancies and such.
Do we want to
So-
just develop a policy for next January's meeting to run through all this, or do we want to act on it today? I'll open that up to the,
I'd just like to make a motion that we print our website, notification of meetings, with the note that minutes will appear on the website 5 days after the meeting, or whatever the amount of
So
days
you want to physically print it in the paper?
Announcement.
A little announcement in the classifieds, under notices should be sufficient. That shouldn't cost very much, and it would decrease our cost a lot. We can also send the minutes if they want to publish those, they can, but all we'll have to pay for is that little ad. This way, it is published in the paper. The thing is a lot of people do not know, for one thing, we even exist, that we even have a website. And we do need to get our name out there, our website out there, so the public knows we exist.
I can second that. Just printing a notice.
So
we also talked about, we still have to send the minutes to the paper.
Okay, I'll add, that we consider email as mail
Okay.
until directed otherwise. Because we have to mail a copy to the paper. Doesn't say we have to print. But there's no reason we can't consider email as mail.
I will email them to the paper with that language on there that this is for informational purposes only. But I will post
my motion,
notice
right
of
there.
meeting.
That's my second, and with a friendly amendment.
With the,
That's just
well, I think that, basically I had said that, except with the little notice of meetings with our website, and that the meetings can be found there.
So we're going to pay for the notice of meetings, notifying them that the minutes will be available within 5 days after our meeting on our website. And then in addition, the draft minutes will still be emailed with the language. This material is for informational purposes.
Right.
That's my second.
Okay.
That's
Okay,
what I would say.
That's your motion, that's your
That's your
second.
That's my motion, that's what I said the first time.
Second. Any
I'll
further-
even third that.
Any third, any discussion? Any third discussion?
Okay.
Any discussion?
It's about time you two got your heads together.
As long as we're staying within all.
From the public? All right. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Better not be.
Okay. Old business, update on Canyon Lake. Basically, there's no update at this particular point, other than it appears they have torn the dam out and they have run a bypass around, because the bypass they put in couldn't hold the water and Pactola, the flows that they needed to get down, because all of the aquifers are very high up there and the springs are loading the creek in faster than they can dump it out.
And there's mud in the bottom of Canyon Lake and 2 kids got stuck in it.
Safely,
He's a man.
thanks to the fire department, 2 fire departments.
Yeah.
So that hasn't been
It hasn't been removed yet. Yeah.
The kids were, weren't they?
Well, the kids were removed.
Oh, okay.
Kids were removed.
They were up to their knees in mud and could not move
Could
their
not get
legs
out.
I seen that.
Something
a
fun.
fraction of an inch.
I seen that. Took two.
Was that in the paper?
Jeez. I wonder-
It was on the radio, they, rescued them by setting out planks of wood and ladders to reach them.
It was in last night's paper.
It was in last night's paper?
Yeah.
It was last night's.
Mr. Chairman, can I make
It's
a
in the
motion
paper.
to take a 5-minute break?
Yeah, my last point on the Canyon Lake was that we're still waiting to see if the state throws in their piece. So, but and I think everybody's been aware of that. So, strategic planning is off the plate for this one. So we can take a 5-minute break if everybody's up for that, and we'll come back to safety benefits improvements recommendations. Second. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh.
Must be sitting under a vent or something.
It's cool in here today.
Yeah, it is cold in here.
It's not just
Original.
How you doing, old guy?
The compacted reservoir. The first set of gauges that we put in to measure the water level for Pactola. They're old things.
Sorry,
I'm gonna cause the recording. Remind me I caused the
Well,
They
recording.
got like piano
sometimes.
paper where they
Make a motion to come back from break?
Yeah, sure. We'll return to order. The next item is safety benefits improvements recommendations.
Is this a motion or a motion?
So just, this is just a follow-up from last meeting that we had a review from our Safety Benefits South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance. And then the recommendation, then we have to respond to the comments, the recommendations for loss control. And so this is my, so I made the list of recommendations. Some of them were quite simple. Like you'll see on the top of the agenda, there was an addition that the board cannot take official action on any item not on the agenda. So just a simple adding that, so, and it's addressed. But a lot of the items, I postponed till April or July of next year because they're items that really are going to need to be addressed by the new board. Specifically, legal counsel came up a couple of different times in our discussions, and that the council should, the district should have legal counsel to review policies, and also to have present for procedural type issues and such. So it was a priority recommendation, and then you can see my comments that these are mainly agenda items for the January agenda to be addressed by the new board. So I will be sending that off to satisfy the insurance requirement of responding in 30 days, 60 days.
Can that just come from you, or does that need a signature from anybody?
No, that can just come from me.
Okay. Any questions on that item? I don't think we need any action taken, so if there's no questions, we shall move to the next item in old business, or no, to new business. Coda Habitat and Conservation Video Project.
Okay. So we were contacted by, I'm sorry, I forgot his name, Randy. And I'll find his name here. Anyway, they are doing this Dakota Habitat video series, and you'll see they have quite a bit of, support going for this project. He could not be here today because he is going to be presenting to East Dakota tomorrow in hopes of getting a partnership with East Dakota he said he would be willing to come to our January meeting and talk to the board. So, but I wanted you to have the information, so that's an item that we don't have to take action on, that we can move to the January agenda.
I agree with that.
You want a motion to move it to the January agenda?
I don't think we need a motion, I think we can just do so unless anybody wants to
Just
make a
move it to
motion to
old business,
sponsor.
Any comments on that? Concerns moving it to January? All right, so shall be done. Okay, policy 27, staff performance evaluations. There has been quite a bit of discussion on that so far. I'll just reiterate where I was going with this, that we have a policy out there to review the performance of the person management program. We developed a evaluation form. Some people have completed the evaluation form, and if you haven't received it, or if you're not going to do it, that's up to you as a director, and that's fine. But we'll take the other comments and we'll use those. The intent was to develop a committee to review those and come up with a consensus. One thing I need to check on is the applicability to public availability to this information. And so I need to check on that before that gets out. So, does there anybody want to volunteer to be on a committee to review the applications or review the performance reviews? You won't be here? You won't be here?
I'll be here.
Okay. All right. Looks like it'll be Mr. Aker and I, so we shall do it and review it. And I'll provide look on the legality of any of this getting shared to the public and how we deal with it and how it rolls out to the evaluation process. And we can bring it up, if anybody has concerns about it, to bring it up on the January agenda item on how we're going to review a contractor or an employee.
So we're gonna also carry this over to January also.
If somebody wants to, well, we have to give a report, and if we have to do executive session too, if there's any issues or concerns based upon the reviews. All right.
So, explain this again. What are we doing right now?
What we're doing right now is just reviewing the performance this past year of these. And some people had issues on whether we're reviewing the performance of the contractor or our employee. To me, she's both. She's employed with us through a contract. So we're doing a performance appraisal of her performance. And that could be used if we have issues with the contract, if there's a lot of negative things in here, that'll be substantial use to say we don't want to use RCAC anymore. And if there's all positive comments, that it's just a way to evaluate the person working for us.
So when are we gonna do this? And
The intent is to do it in January. I got all the performance reviews from everybody.
well, I won't be here in January, but I can give you my review
Okay.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's all I was wondering.
Any other questions? All right. The next item is the SDRCD Annual Conference Director Attendance Reimbursement.
I was contacted by one of the incoming directors regarding the Western RC&D, Resource Conservation Development Association Annual Conference coming up in January, and was asked if this is something that the directors, the incoming directors, or the 2015 directors, if they can attend and get reimbursed for. And so I guess that would require discussion, action. You have the conference agenda and registration in front of you.
May I ask which directors asked to participate, or was it all new directors?
It was Ken Steichen. He said he hasn't made a determination, but he would like to know if it could be reimbursed, or if it would be reimbursed.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could we ask if he'd volunteer to be our rep at RCND if we're gonna send him to this thing? Since we haven't attended one for a while.
I was gonna say, I'm sorry about that.
A caveat to if we think about giving him some money for that?
I can't speak for him, but
Definitely.
Yeah, I know.
I've
That's
been
what
trying
I'm
to,
saying.
I haven't had a chance to study what's
Oh,
on
okay.
here, but yeah.
but I don't think it necessarily needs to be specific to him. I mean, if there are other interested directors.
I don't see anything on here for.
Sanders, our delegate now. isn't she?
I know. And I'm sorry, I went to one, I got there and there was no meeting. I went the following month and the meeting was the day before. Then my dad got very ill and I have not been able to attend another one. So I have not, I've tried to go and I got the lady down there to give me the next meeting, and then, like I said, then my dad got ill, and then I was at the hospital for over a month, well over a month with him. And he's back home and doing a lot better, but like I said, I haven't
I
tried
typically
anything.
don't have any problem with people attending, stuff that's educational on water issues, but I only seen one item on here that is associated with water, just done my quick review. And that's on the last page on the Lewis and Clark Watershed Implementation Project. But that's just my thought, so. I would love to see, again, I missed it last year, but I would, the water conferences and all that stuff is.
Are you
very-
looking at the RC&D one, or are you looking at the?
The Western RC&D Association Annual Conference, it's way off to the
Right.
left over here. Then I was looking at the rest of the agenda on the second page.
Okay.
Just didn't see a whole lot of water stuff, or that's the only water thing I've seen. 11:45 to 1 p.m. Or, no, 1:30 to 2:30, sorry. Or 1:30 to 1:30 to 2.
Yeah, half an hour.
But, so that's my input. Any other comments from the rest of the board? Public?
I don't see anything of value to the board.
So, we have a motion one way or the other?
I'll make a motion to disapprove.
Second.
Got a motion to disapprove in a second. Open for discussion.
I'll second it for discussion.
It's already been seconded. Open for discussion. I gave my comments. I would love to send anybody to something that has a lot of water stuff. This only had one item, so. Okay, all in favor of disapproving the request, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
All right.
Okay. Pass for disapproval. All right, we move on to items from directors.
Yeah, I was at a soil health meeting yesterday, and this redistricting, you probably read it in the paper and heard about it, was brought up, and she showed a map on the screen. Well, I couldn't see it, and so I went up and asked her for it afterwards. Well, she didn't have it. so she said she would send it to Denise and Denise got it to me, so. I don't have anything to talk about except that I have a lot of questions about what's going on here. I have no statement, like I say, I have a question.
I do too.
I got a lot.
And I'm glad you brought it up, and maybe we can ask Denise to work on trying to grab somebody for the January or March meeting to come in and discuss it.
If you look at your January, or your November board packet, there is a link to the draft legislation for the development. I can send it out for you, but I'll email the link and then you can read the draft legislation. So the implementation of these drainage basins does not necessarily mean that it will wipe out the water development district. So they have and this legislation, it basically stems off of the drainage issues on the eastern side of the state, but they were looking at the state as a whole, and that's where it came down to, is dividing up into these watershed development districts, but they are calling them river basin natural resource districts. So, but I will send the link out to the proposed legislation for everyone to read. It's riveting.
Is there any chance we could get anybody to come and discuss it of knowledge?
I will find somebody.
Okay. That would be good.
If this is proposed legislation, you certainly would want it at your January meeting, because in your March meeting, you're too late.
Yeah.
Then it's informational as to what they did.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Who proposed the legislation, do you know?
They have a watershed task force. Brian Gosh was the head of the task force.
Yeah. Yeah, they've been working on it, I think, for about 5 years.
Yeah.
So are those lighter lines, is that sub-basins, or could that, like, would the Bellfish and Cheyenne be together, or will it truly be two different, do we know?
The way I understood that Bellfish and Cheyenne would be one.
Yeah.
Same way with some of those little ones, that, like that Little Missouri, that wouldn't have much, I would think they'd want to go in.
That's on this district here, right?
Yeah.
Little Missouri.
Yeah.
So there are 9 of them.
Moorhead,
so
Green.
Not big ones.
Laurel Green,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you look on real old maps, you'll find there's only one Cheyenne River. The North Fork, the Bellfish, and the South Fork.
Denise, do you have any idea what their purpose is?
Yeah, I think they stated that they want to take it out of the hands of the county commissions,
Take what out of the hands?
the money spending.
Money on water projects or on water?
Water projects.
That may be.
Grant requests, I think there's a whole list of stuff they wanted to just take it out of the hands of all the county commissions. And I think they're having more problems back east than we're having.
Well, that might be how this started, as more of a drainage issue, East River, than, you know, as usual, we're kind of, you know, what's ever left over.
We get thrown in there.
Leave it alone.
Oh, interesting. So that it was, Laverne, just basically an informational purposes you wanted to bring to the attention?
Yeah, I wanted information.
Yeah, okay. Maybe we can get more in our
Yeah, because see,
January
this is
meeting.
the
Somebody.
Bellfish and the Redwater.
I could provide just a brief bit of additional information if you'd like.
That would be greatly appreciated.
I have followed the developments fairly closely. Like Denise pointed out, this comes out of this advisory task force. It really was formed focusing on drainage issues and drainage laws in eastern South Dakota, a lot of it relating to drain tiles that have been, you know, installed extensively in recent years. And, you know, there's been a lot of consternation within the counties. Under state law, the counties regulate drainage. They can choose to make drainage laws or permit. Counties really don't know how to deal with that, and of course, drainages don't respect political boundaries. And in recognition of these problems, this task force was found, and there's been a lot of input from a lot of different groups, and this proposal is what came out of it. Denise, did you say that Jay Gilbertson had offered to come out here to your January meeting? Or did I?
No, that's Randy Stratton regarding the video.
Oh, okay, so I missed that. You know, Mr. Gilbertson is, Director of East Dakota, has followed the issue very closely, very well informed on it, and I'm sure he'd be happy to, provide you an overview. He's, knows a lot of the perspectives, especially relative to, water development districts, things like that, so.
Just a question, on the tide, you got your water drainage issues, and when I think of water drainage, I think of development and the controls and stormwater permits and managing water so that you don't have somebody put in 500-mile square parking lot and then that causes this drainage problem from somebody downstream. So is the state legislature saying that the cities and counties aren't managing that properly or can't manage it, and so they're trying to create these districts to create rules to manage it?
It's not so much that as I think the original issue was these drain tiles. So people installed drain tiles, moves water from their fields, and it goes downstream, and the counties are mandated with being the political entity that regulate this, but they don't know how to. To what extent should you regulate, require permits? Counties have been writing drainage ordinances and then getting out of them. Legally there's, I'm sure Mr. Jasper could attest, there's all sorts of, legal ramifications. It's been a real black box, and the counties really can't deal with it. And so I think they, many of them kind of welcome, this sort of this legislation. I mean, the logic is, there's some reasonable logic there.
Well, I was gonna say, I think I heard something about because of the flooding and stuff like that, and the water is bounding some people's boundaries and others, and some land issues and stuff like that, to get it more uniform under the state. Is that what? Because I know a lot of the flooding problems last spring and opened up a lot of can of worms on the eastern side of the coast because of loss of land, because now their land is waterfront, and
those are certainly questions that are relevant, that pertain to that issue.
Yeah.
So are they looking for the districts to regulate the back thing that those districts will regulate that water flow, and is that kind of?
Well, if there would be a decision to whether you'd regulate or how permitting, things like that it would be done on a watershed basis as opposed to a county basis. That these large watersheds would be managing issues, and not just water issues, other natural resource issues as well. It's not just water. Do you have the proposed legislation? Mm-hmm. There, I think they specifically refer to natural resource districts, or what is their
natural resource drainage basin.
It says River Basin Natural Resource District.
Are they talking about groundwater and all that kind of stuff too, or just
groundwater, surface water, other resources? So I mean, I think there could be implications for the conservation districts, for instance, which deal with, resource management.
The thinking is from people like Jay Gilbertson, he runs a water development district. Is he thinking that these would replace this district, or are they both going to coexist? No.
No,
well,
this isn't to replace the water.
It will not. I mean, that's not what they're talking
about. The legislation does not address that. The legislation specifically allows taxing authority similar to what exists for water development districts. So I think they just left that alone, recognizing that that question would come up and that there probably would be discussion as to whether there's, need for two entities that kind of do the same thing, or if you might look towards, consideration of merging.
Right.
It's a possibility.
Okay.
Very muchly so.
Not knowing that.
As I recall, they got when this passes, and they're hoping this session, there's gotta be a stormwater drainage plan and place for approval by DENR by 2017 or something like that. I mean, I
I
don't
think
foresee
it's July of
that.
2016, I think they moved it to July
I don't
30th.
foresee that happening.
July
It's
31st.
It's gonna take them a year just to start getting on the right page.
This kind of is leaning towards what we've been talking about, getting the Black Hills area on these watersheds and, to expanding and to address it properly, not just on our small boundary that we have. So, no, interesting. I may comment on a
And
personal
this will
basis.
give us the ability to get nosy done, and this will give us the ability to get real nosy about that uranium mining.
Yeah, because it would be in this
That would be
district.
in the district.
Mr. Chair, may I just add a little bit of information as
Yes,
well?
please.
After 25 years, I've seen these efforts to create drainage districts come and go. And two adages come to mind, I guess. One is, a camel was a horse that was designed by committee. And the other one is that whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. And I think this is a huge undertaking on the part of a task force, and I admire them for their willingness to take this on. I wouldn't for a minute suggest that this large concept has a chance of being passed, as one big idea in one legislative session. The one thing that I'd suggest to you, though, if you have a way, I don't know how Denise stays in touch on legislative issues, but being able to, whether it's through the conservation districts or somebody, I think it's really important in this particular issue to be as well informed, because these things, as you know, legislation can change on an amendment in 10 minutes. And so, and they used to say about the lobbying business that it was hours of boredom punctuated by moments of sheer terror. And it's those moments of sheer terror where a bill that you think you understand turns into something that's completely different. I think it's really important to have somebody watching out for your interests there, and I don't know exactly how you'd want to go about that, but whether Denise spends a little more time over there or whatnot, but I really do think it's important for you to have somebody reporting to you in some way.
With just a question for you, I know you've been in this business for a long time. What do you think the chances are of this passing? I've heard just a little bit about it, but not enough, and then I haven't had a chance to read the entire legislation. What do you think of the chances?
I wouldn't, now this is just my own personal opinion.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it even at 50-50 at this particular point. The reason I say that is that we've had, you remember when we had the big fires and everybody was worried about runoff from the fire areas and what that would do to surface waters. We had that issue, that was back in the early 90s. And then, in the last 2 years or 3 years, we've been fighting over this issue called non-meandered lakes. And I think that's the issue that was most important in the eastern part of the state, is that areas got inundated, and now people by boat had access to property that was a rancher's property. And so you could pull up next to a guy's barn in your boat, where just a few years earlier, you couldn't have accessed that area. So it was a matter of who has access, who has right to it, all these sorts of issues. And it's really been a difficult, complex issue. But I happen to see this one as perhaps more complex due to the detail that would be involved in implementing it. I would suggest that they may want to take this up. I mean, come to some kind of conclusion and refer it perhaps to another interim committee over the summer or something. But it's an important issue, and I think it's a good concept to manage water by its watershed, except in the Black Hills. I really think that in the Black Hills, we have to take a look at the entire hydrology as opposed to what happens on the Big Jim or areas of, Missouri or eastern part of the state. So I think I'd advocate for a bigger unit to be managed as a whole. And then however they want to do that in other parts of the state.
Aren't they kind of doing that, though?
That's what I understand, but I tried to listen to the debate, and I've tried to read the legislation, and quite frankly, there's a lot of confusing language in there as far as I'm concerned, but that, I think, is what, and of course, all of this is subject to change anyway. But I do think it's going to be a real interesting debate, an important topic, and I think you should really make sure that whatever it takes to stay on top of it, you do that, because I think it could be very, very important to an organization like this.
Yeah, and it's gonna happen next month?
Yeah.
Do you have a map that shows the Cheyenne and Belle Fourches? I think that is where it actually landed.
It is, currently.
As far as I know, that was my understanding, I thought. It would encompass the entirety of the Black Hills. Yeah.
It,
It would not go into Wyoming, of course.
well, depends on how you read the map. But yeah, no, South Dakota doesn't have the jurisdiction there.
Correct.
But they could do the interstate compact.
I would ask that you stay in touch with it, Denise. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there is.
With your contacts and stuff, and if you could send out frequent notes on changes and stuff, that's, on emails, which would be interesting. I myself am going to read it and try to understand it a little bit better. And it's intriguing to me for what we do is that big of a body to make a difference. And the unintriguing thing is how much they want you to do. It sounds like it would get overbearing and based upon just the discussions we had without reading it. So it would be nice to address water, and I'm not sure if we can address a whole lot of other things in a government body.
I think there'd have to be subcommittees and everything else.
And just to add, you know that all public debate on any legislative topic is available on the internet.
Yeah.
Both as it happens, and it's also
archived
so that you can go back and listen to it later. So avail yourself of that.
I have a difficult time with looking at the watersheds and so on, that it's a state situation. Because you look at the Red River, most of that comes out of North Dakota. The Cheyenne, most of it comes out of Wyoming. How is South Dakota controlling what comes out of North Dakota and Wyoming on there? It looks to me like it's quite an undertaking that they're proposing. I suppose there are certain things that you can mitigate within the state, but most of the water in the Red River comes out of North Dakota. Cheyenne is coming out of Wyoming.
Well, the Belle Fourche comes out of Wyoming.
Belle Fourche does too, yeah.
And so does the Redwater, which flows into the Belle Fourche in Belle Fourche.
Little Missouri.
In Missouri.
Yeah, in the Little Missouri.
Controlled, but.
Yeah.
Well, I guess if you're just gonna have to have a state compact, if this thing finds problems, you're gonna have to take it to the legislature, and they're gonna have to come up with some kind of state compact.
I was gonna say, back in the 30s, the water districts were controlled by the 5 state, or the North Dakota, Montana, and Wyoming all were represented and had a water meetings every year. My great uncle was on the committee, and he was a representative of Montana. But they all work together, as far as the states go.
Any other comments on that topic? Any other items from directors?
Well, if you want to talk about problems where they were trying to resolve water issues back in the early 80s when Mark Myhenry was still the Attorney General, he was going to get all the water in South Dakota appropriated with a big lawsuit that he started entitled Running Water Ranch. That was the name of it, but it died down, and that was shortly before the ETSI, when they were talking about the big water pipeline, you know, running water from South Dakota over to Wyoming so that they could put the cold slurry pipeline down to Arkansas, if any of you remember that. Yeah, well, that lawsuit died for lack of interest because they realized what a big problem it would have been to apportion all the water in just in western South Dakota because of the Missouri River. And of course, then they had to figure in the Indian water rights under the Winters Doctrine. So yeah, this is a bucket of worms yet.
Huge.
Any other items from directors? All right, items from the public.
I've got a couple of items, and I'm surprised that Chuck didn't catch the Red River deal. He's the master of trivia, and that's not trivial, but Red River dumps into Canada.
Well, it dumps into Hudson Bay.
In Canada, yeah, it doesn't.
That's the Red River of the north.
Right,
You
in
mean
fact-
not the south.
There's part of the Red River in South Dakota, right?
Yep.
And that goes into North Dakota. So, anyway, I looked at this conference, rural water systems, and golly, I don't see anything on there that this board should be involved in. Mapping with smartphones, water system data management, hands-on metering, pump repair, advanced trends in wireless systems technology, mapping of locators, wastewater technology, intelligent water technology. These are the sessions that this handout here from rural water, and I guess I don't see anything that, like I said, that anybody from this board should be attending.
Thanks, George, on that. We addressed that and voted on that already and had that open to public comment. But thanks for your comments.
Now, the minutes, you would let me talk about it. Minutes don't talk about it, but last meeting, I recall a comment made that West Dakota has had precedent, and I'm sorry, precedents do, and I'm sorry, Larry, but you say precedents only for court. Well, guess what? If a city council or the board of commissioners set a precedent, they make an exception for somebody, they better make exceptions for the rest of them. That's a precedent. Anyway, that aside, I don't remember, when I was on the board, do you remember Sandy or Chuck voting for speaker fees for hydrology conference? That comment was made last meeting, if I heard it right.
I wasn't here last meeting.
Okay, yeah, you weren't, well, but my question was, do you recall in the past, this board voting for speaker funds for the hydrology conference? Thank you. Conflict of interest. How many times have we been over that with one of the directors about the School of Mines has a conflict of interest and the School of Mines professor shouldn't be voting on this stuff. And I started to raise that last meeting and I didn't say anything at all, but the actual motion was made by Sawyer to approve the funds. He should have recused himself.
Approve the funds on what?
On the speaker of hydrology conference. He said, the gal that came here was from the School of Mines.
Yeah, I didn't know what conference you were talking about. There's
The hydrology conference.
All right.
Okay, $4,000. Okay? How tough is it to understand conflict of interest? How many times did you and I go at it on the board? You shouldn't be voting on School of Mines stuff.
That conference is not sponsored by the School of Mines.
is one of your colleagues got up here and asked for the money.
She's a volunteer on the board of it.
And you're going to tell me the School of Mines doesn't have a big part to play in the hydrology conference?
I think a lot of people do, George, and you guys have been over the conflict.
A
of
major
interest.
player is Scott Kenner. Is he part of the School of Mines? Foster Sawyer, is he part of the School of Mines? Let's see what some of the other names. Primary participants and presenters, right? So as the School of Mines play a major role, anyway, forget it. The other thing I want to say is, did you mention executive session for RCAC appraisal?
No.
I must have heard that wrong then. And I'd like to ask, Jay Gilbertson is not a director of East Dakota.
No, he's their administrative manager.
No, well, you said he was a director.
I don't recall saying.
You know, George,
Anyway.
let's get to some points besides these petty little things. This gets really old. I'm sorry, but it gets really old, these petty little things. You know, if you got a point on some good water issues or something, we'd love to hear them.
Well, there's a really, really large water issue that I haven't heard anybody talk about on this board. And it certainly involves Laverne and certainly involves me. And that's the water of the United States. Now, this board could make a statement on that. Laverne, what are you going to do when some EPA guy comes out and says, and we've all got some wetlands or some slough or some whatever, most all of us. And some EPA guy or gal is going to tell us what we can do with our own land. Now, I can see this board taking a stand on that.
I think the comment period is come and gone.
I don't know that it has.
I think it's extended again.
I think it's extended.
Did they extend
But
it?
we talk about
I
something
don't-
serious.
Well, I'm not sure, but I know what you're talking about.
That's pretty serious, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And I don't know what I'll do if some EPA guy he says, I got a right to be here. You know, I don't know what I'm going to do. You understand? So that's something that this board, that is a valid issue for this board. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree.
Okay.
I do.
I agree with you too. I've commented on the rules.
Well, could we put that on a January meeting to discuss a letter?
That is, yes.
And this group should be talking to all three congressional, you know, they're all on our side, obviously, on Laverne's side and my side, if there's sides to be taken. But that's our private property.
And it's
Even stock
important-
dams.
It's important to get educated on that process. It's a big rule and complicated rule. And
No, it's just government, more and more government. And I guess I'll leave with this, that I read a little bit of that proposal that Majority Leader Gosh came up with for this session's legislature, or this session. And I certainly agree with Larry. The chances of that going through are, this session is that's a pretty big undertaking. And I've talked to a few legislators, you know, on my own behalf and here local, and the stock growers, from what I understand, they're against it. So they got one hell of an uphill battle. I've got two problems with that. One is I don't think it's constitutional, or at least there's a constitutional question. It's another layer of government telling the counties and the cities, for that matter, what to do. So there's a constitutional question in my mind. And secondly, even a bigger issue is this board or whatever the entity is, that taxing entity, by the way, and I think that's what Larry said, a taxing entity, who are these Solomon's going to be to decide what we should do, or what we can do or can't do with our private property? And then I'll leave you with this, elections have consequences. Thank you.
Well, they sure do.
No, they really don't.
Just one last thing before you. I just wanted to make it very clear that I didn't want to give you the impression that I don't support the effort that these people are making to establish the kind of districts that they are. I support that very strongly. It's just I think the practical side of me is saying there's so much detail here that I don't anticipate any big accomplishment in one session. And I may be completely wrong. It may just go right through. But there's so much detail here that I think that the effort should be to work toward that goal. And because I didn't want to give anybody the opinion that I don't support the concept. It's a matter of trying to make all the pieces and parts work.
Thank you. It does sound complicated.
It's like the health bill, you gotta pass it before you read it.
Any other items from the public? All right, hearing none. Motion for adjournment.
Wait, I'll make a motion for adjournment.
I'll
second that. Third, fourth.
Got a second?
I'll second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?